Usually in the mornings, what we do when we come in, we're really um, we're just doing some work. There's a couple of things that, so this morning specifically, what we're working on, I work in tech sales and I'm a manager. And so trying to tell people some of the things that I look for when I'm hiring, you'd be shocked the number of people that comes to me that, man, just don't know their story. I always tell folks that you have to know your story. It's your story. And so two of the main things that you need to know is why tech sales? It's why tech sales and why the company. And I'll tell you, so why tech sales should be pretty simple. It's anything from, hey, I've had a background, talk about wanting to be in a customer facing role, talk about being driven, talk about wanting to be competitive, talking about wanting to be controlling your destiny. It's okay to talk about wanting to make money. I think that's totally okay. And talking about wanting to be an AE, like at least wanting to go on the path. The secret is very few people, if you're trying to tell people that you're trying to get into tech sales just to figure it out, that won't work. Or if you say, hey, we want to get into tech sales to become a marketer, that won't work as well. Somehow you have to convince people that you're trying to get into tech sales, because if you want to become an AE, you want to rise throughout the company. That is what people are looking for. The other thing is this idea around why the company. There's a lot of things. You can talk about the team, you can talk about the product. So the team is, hey, these folks are, I looked at the team and I saw, I love the vision of the founders. I love the folks that are working, they're the leaders, or I see that there's people had great background. You want to talk about the industry that you're in, or I see this product is actually solving a need that is, worthwhile. That's one thing to think about. Those are some core things of why the company and what you're seeing it out there in the industry. So I like to say those are just a core piece, because somewhere along the line, someone's going to ask, or why the company, and then why the company, why you, why tech sales. So after you've done that, obviously you want to make sure you know what the comp is. You want to know a little bit about it. I made a video that talked about it. It takes nothing to be over prepared. In terms of resume, it is one-page resume. That's really all you need to talk about that. So you need a one-page resume. Referrals are always helpful. So find someone who already works there, reach out to them, ask them about the company, ask them what questions you would have had. And then I would then definitely read up on different, like, what are your typical questions that people might ask, right? Like, there's always behavior questions of how you work well with a team, time that you've demonstrated grit, right? So if there were times in your life where you had to overcome something. Also, people just want to know, like, a lot of them is you'll have a base and you'll have a commission. And then the goal is, can you handle that pressure of every month or every quarter having to hit commission? Not a lot of people understand that. Obviously, most folks are in office, so that's something you have to consider as well. So right now I'm just going through some resumes. We'll see. To be said about practicing. I see a lot of people show up that they haven't practiced, and so what I'm saying is, find someone that's in your family, find a friend, and just practice back and forth. In fact, you can actually go to ChatGPT or Claude or any of these things and have them practice frequent questions with you. I think that would go a long way. What I don't want is that when you get to me, that I'm your first interview and you're stuttering and you don't know how to speak and you don't know what type of questions. It takes nothing to be over-prepared. And in fact, I think the bar has risen because people are doing lots of these programs. People are paying for payment. People have tons of mentorship. So if you're like me that just didn't have it all, like I remember when I was getting into tech, I was listening to tons of podcasts. I was reading tons of books. I was already good in public speaking, so I was fluent and good on my feet. I think there's a lot of that's missing right now, and you can get a edge up. People just want to know, honestly. It's like, are you a good communicator? And more recently, what I'm seeing is, can you use the tools that are given? It's not like people don't want you to use ChatGPT, but can you think critically and then use, ChatGPT, Claude, or any of those tools out there as a tool and not the thing that takes away from your thinking? So, in fact, for us, we give people an opportunity to use these tools, but it's how you use them. Because if you're solely dependent on them, I don't think you're going to make it in our company. And those are just some of the things, One of the other things I talk about or ask folks is, what are you looking for in this next role? You'd be shocked, not a lot of people have thought through it. And we're not looking for much. The idea is just like, have you thought about what type of company you want to be in? So there are big companies, there are small companies, there are companies that you have a bit more freedom, there are companies that right in the middle, people want a lot of training and development. And it takes time to think about that, it takes time to think about the industry, or you want to be in data infrastructure, like we're in workforce management call center. Like, are you thinking about what industry, company size, and what are some of the things that you want to have accomplished, right? And I think those are helpful to think about when you're thinking about what type of company you want to think about. Some of the common questions or some of the common answers I get are, you want it to be somewhere collaborative, you want the coaching and development, you want to be a part of a good team. Those are all good thoughts of like, you thought about where you want to work. There's a thoughtfulness to this. You didn't just stumble into this and saying, oh yeah, I want a job. There's more to it than this. And I think that's really important to think through. And then when it's times for you to come to ask someone questions, I think it's helpful to start to think about like the things that are important to you, right? So really some of the questions that are good, that I've seen that are good over the years. So personally for me, if you're asking me as a manager, it's what's my managing style? How are you going to make me successful? What is the culture like? Those are all good. How many people are hitting quota? Then there's this idea of like, how are you going to help to develop me? Those are some good stuff. Don't just ask questions that don't really matter. It's also just helpful of like, there's something extra when someone look at my background and they saw that like, oh, I used to run track. It's like, hey, how has that helped you? Ask about some of the things that are important to you. If you care about company runway, like, where is the company going? When's the next funding round? Like, these are all deep questions. We have folks talk to our head of sales, and so the answer is like, what's your vision for the team? What's your vision for the SDR team? These are all good questions that you can ask us and continue. As I said, people just show up unprepared. I'm just hoping this is just a start. If people are interested in more of this, I can do a more formalized video. But yeah, this is just a start here. But I just, because I'm in I'm in this mode, it's very interesting. When I tell people to prepare, it's shocking how very few people do. And I know it's rough when you're applying to a lot of companies. But one of the things that is very simple, and it is expected, if someone moves you to a take-home, you start to think about, are you on the website? Think about the case studies that they've done. What type of companies they go after? What type of people do they sell to? Can you find those people on LinkedIn? Try and reverse engineer that. What's their value prop? And the idea is that how are they describing themselves on those case studies or on the website? A lot of people have probably done a couple webinars. They probably have posts on LinkedIn. This is some ways to research. The good thing is you can throw all of this stuff into Claude and ChatGPT. That is totally fine. However, you have to make sure you know this stuff. So when people show up to me, like, they're just regurgitating stuff that they put on a slide without actually knowing what they're knowing. It costs nothing to go above and beyond and learn these things. One thing that has changed over the years is that we used to give people a write-in exercise or cold call exercise. In fact, there's a lot of that still the same. So we still ask people to do some writing or cold call. Now we're having them perform it live. That's where a lot of people fall short. And I'm often thinking based on their background or anything, what we're really trying to say is like, number one, are they coachable? How do they respond on their feedback? Obviously, there's a performance aspect to that, and we understand. And then there's also like how quickly are they thinking on their feet along the way. And those are some of the things I'm constantly thinking about. If you just chat GPT everything, and you showed up and everything was written by ChatGPT, you never even reviewed it, it shows. I'm telling you, it shows. One of the questions I ask, and this is more personal to me because I'm trying to get to know people on a different level, is this idea around like, what's your superpower? Like, why choose you? There's some variation of that. There's also a variation of like, what would make you stand out? What's something you geek out about? Something you could give a TED talk on. There's something along that of just like talking about, you could talk about your grit. I used to talk about my sports background a lot, and about getting it done. Talk about how creative you were. One of the trends that I'm seeing is that the people that are getting the job are people who are straight hustlers. They've shown grit, but those are people who show just how they can bounce back and deal with uncertainty. And if you can talk about that resilience that you have or demonstrate over the years, talk about the superpower that you have, trust me, there's a lot to work with there.